You're listening to the Pens Nation radio show on thepensnation.com.
Arch!
Follow us on Twitter at The Pens Nation.
The city of Pittsburgh couldn't raise the Jolly Roger this afternoon. You can raise the Metropolitan Division Champion banner, if that exists in Pittsburgh. If it did, you can raise it because the Pittsburgh Penguins are officially the Metropolitan Division Champions. The first... Raise it! The first champions of the Metropolitan Division with a win, a 4-2 win over the Winnipeg Jets in Winnipeg. They actually clinched the division before they went on to win the game after the Philadelphia Flyers lost to Columbus 2-0. So Pittsburgh Penguins do win the Metro as they will have the top spot there. Won't have the top spot in the conference most likely, but they do come out with a nice 4-2 win against the Winnipeg Jets. Welcome to the Pens Nation radio show. I'm Andy Hughes, and joined with me now are Nick Richter and Casey Johnston. And guys, it feels good to win, obviously, and coming off of a really bad loss against Carolina the other night at Consol Energy Center. It's good to see that they kind of get back on track a little bit and had Paul Martin come back. Beau Bennett was moved up to the top line, so some good. We saw some good things tonight, some adjustments, and they played a decent game, I thought. They are the Metropolitan Division champions, but I want to ask this question to you guys first because, a lot was said about that game against Carolina, how bad it was, and it was. And don't get me wrong, it was very ugly, but Casey, we'll start with you. I mean, are you really going to judge this team based on these last, 6 or 7 regular season games? Does it really matter to you how the Penguins play? Because some people were going crazy after the Carolina game, and I understand, it was very ugly. If they're playing like that in the playoffs, yeah, that's one thing. But with the lineup that they had that night, and Paul Martin was out, we saw Paul Martin come back in tonight. And we saw a much improved team, especially defensively, where they don't really have to rely on guys like Brooks Orpik and Ole Mata to have huge minutes, because Ole obviously hasn't played this much hockey his entire life. Brooks is getting older. Scuderi's been struggling, and Matt Niskanen, he hasn't really played this much hockey in a while either. So Paul Martin obviously is going to take up a lot of the minutes, and they're not going to rely as heavily on those other guys. So, KCD, what are you looking for here in these last few regular season games?
If it was just that one Carolina game, I wouldn't be concerned, but the fact that March happened the way it happened kind of concerns me. I'm just looking for the Penguins to play good, responsible hockey and not carry any bad habits into the playoffs. I think they were promising tonight. I like what Paul Martin instantly brought back to the lineup. He gave that infusion of offense that they've been missing, and he rewarded that with a goal. So, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for good, responsible hockey. I'm looking for them to play like they did during the first half of the season and not so much how they've played in the last half.
Yeah,
Nick,
I'd have
what
to
about
agree
you?
with that, too. It would be really good to see them start to play sound, fundamental hockey. But right now, they're still working out a lot of the bugs in their game because here's a team that hasn't played like a really healthy roster for more than 11 games all year. So now they're starting to get a few guys back. It'll probably be a while still before Malkin. He'll probably be back by the start of the playoffs. Who knows about Letang? But these guys are still kind of working off some of that rust together. And it's been a long season, but I think it's kind of different because this is so opposite of what we typically see. Typically, March is just the Pens just plow through it and win like 80% of the games. Last year they won 100% of them, but this year they kind of struggled, and maybe that's kind of to get ready for the playoffs and kind of work out those bugs, or maybe they're just having a difficult time. I'd probably chalk it up to the difficult time because they're not used to playing with each other.
Yeah, certainly was good to see them get back in the win column here tonight. Penguins had the shot advantage, 21-15. Not a lot of shots compared to games the past few games. But let's talk about the guys that have returned. Beau Bennett obviously moved up to the top line tonight, and I was so glad to see that because that was something that the Penguins had talked about so many times that they wanted Beau Bennett to play on that right side, but he may have to play on the left side because of the way Kunitz, Crosby, and Stepniak were clicking. But in these last 6 regular season games, why not experiment a little bit? Because Bennett does have the talent to be on a first line. Obviously, he's a right winger, so that's a good fit. And Stepniak, I mean, yeah, he was playing well with Kunitz and Crosby, but he's going to make that third line much better. And I thought he did a great job tonight. Very nice assist on the Craig Adams goal that tied the game at 2 towards the end of the second period there, and that was a big goal. And Stepniak really set that up nicely. So, Nick, how has Beau Bennett really affected this team? Because he's got 3 goals now, obviously 2 since he's returned. He has looked really, really good out there, and not only just the goals, but he's making some nice defensive plays. I think he led the. He had 4 hits tonight, so that was tied for the most on the Penguins tonight. So clearly, Beau Bennett, not only is he putting the puck in the net, but he's doing other small things too.
Yeah, and he's probably a bit hungry too because it's been a long season for him. He's kind of gotten the stigma of being a very injury-prone player, which he kind of has been over his brief NHL career. Probably a bit hungry. It is weird to see him on that hit side of things. I mean, that's not a place where you typically see a first-line kind of guy. I mean, especially guys with finesse and creativity in their game. He's not much of a bruiser, but he's kind of, maybe, like I said, a bit hungry. He's played great since he's come back. I was shocked that he's kind of jumped into such a big role so quick. I do love what he brings to this team in the fact that right now he provides the Pens with a lot of roster flexibility. You're able to put Elise Stempniak down on the third line, and I thought that line looked pretty decent tonight. And I just like that flexibility that he brings to the team right now.
What about you, Casey?
Yeah. Nick started to make the point that I'm going to make, that he does, moving Stepniak down to the bottom 6 does kind of complete the forward core, especially when Malkin gets healthy. Having a first line of Crosby, Kunitz, and Bennett, and then you put Malkin on that second line with Neal and Jokinen, and then having Stepniak in the bottom 6, that kind of solves a lot of the problems that they've had with the bottom. Gotch is injured, but if he can come back for the playoffs, that's even better. So, I like that move.
Yeah, I love it too, and I'm assuming the Penguins will just continue to try that experiment out. There's no reason not to, with a lot of meaningless regular season games coming up, but you kind of want to prepare yourself for the playoffs. So, I mean, it could be an option in the playoffs. We'll have to see. But speaking of solving problems, like you said, Casey, I mean, Paul Martin, I feel like he solves a lot of problems when he's back in the lineup. He got a goal tonight and was pretty good defensively. And Casey, just talk about how important Paul Martin is. It's funny because, after his first year or two in the Penguins uniform, people were all over this guy, and I mean, I don't blame them for that. I mean, he obviously wasn't too good, but it's amazing how as time goes on, how things change so dramatically, and things have changed. I mean, Paul Martin, this guy is so important to this team, isn't he?
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about Paul Martin. I mean, he's really a little bit of everything for the Pens defensive core. He's a bit of a shutdown defenseman. He has a little bit of offense to his game. He plays a lot of minutes. He plays against the other team's toughest competition. He kills penalties, and he plays on the power play. So, I mean, losing Paul Martin, it's a really big deal for them. Having him back, that rounds out a lot of aspects of the Penguins game.
Yeah, they're such a better team with a guy like Paul Martin because he provides a lot of stability and a lot of he slows the game down for the guys. I mean, he's calm. He's all collected for the most part. You rarely see a guy like Paul Martin get rattled, and I think that kind of filters its way throughout the rest of the team too. So whenever Martin's on the ice, he just makes everybody else that much better too.
Yeah, especially Brooks Orpik. I think most nights he makes Brooks Orpik a better defenseman. Tonight, especially.
Yeah, certainly, and Brooks Orpik was certainly happy to have him back, and really good to see Paul Martin get out there and score a goal tonight too. That was awesome to see. Very nice goal. But guys, as I said, kind of at the top of the show, this is also not only for Orpik, but Mata, Niskanen, Scuderi. Those guys, they've been playing a ton, since Martin has been out. So it's very important that now, Paul Martin, we all know he can log a ton of minutes, and he did tonight. I know he was, I think, 8 minutes after the first period. He had 23:46 tonight ice time. That led the Penguins. So, I mean, man, he just comes right off of the IR and leads the team in ice time. I mean, that's just the way Paul Martin is. And Nick, that's huge for, not like I said, not only for Orpik, but we really saw Olli Mata and Matt Niskanen. I mean, they've played in almost every game this season. Niskanen has. Mata's missed 2, but those guys have been playing so much hockey, and they're just not used to playing this much hockey in the specific roles. I mean, Matt Niskanen, he's been in the NHL for a little bit, but he hasn't played, in a top 4 role for that long and in such a long time. So just talk about how Martin, his return helps them too, in addition to Orpik.
I mean, it's just kind of mathematics there in a way. I mean, you got a guy that's going to take a big chunk of minutes because Paul Martin, that's part of his game. He eats up a lot of minutes, and they'll ease him in to that. I don't know what he had tonight. Does anyone have a stat on that, Casey? How many minutes Paul Martin played tonight? But they'll probably start him a little under 20 and go, oh, what did he have?
Okay, tonight Paul Martin had 23 minutes and 46 seconds total time.
Wow.
He had 3 minutes and 53 seconds shorthanded, a minute 32 on the power play, and that led all skaters by the next closest to him was Niskanen with 21:47. So much for easing him into it.
Yeah, they didn't even.
Screw that whole theory.
When you think about it, I mean, he's been gone. I guess it's been over a month because he got hurt during the Olympics. So, yeah, I guess he has been out longer than I thought.
Yeah, and he missed a lot of time. Also, I mean, I don't even know how many games he played from the point where he was hurt until where he got hurt again, that in between. But it didn't seem like a whole lot of games. But, yeah, I'm kind of shocked that they didn't ease him in. But at the same time, if you look how tired everybody else is, maybe he didn't really have that luxury. So it basically filters out a lot of the other guys' minutes. It gives them a little bit of a break, and it cuts down their shifts so they're not having to kind of go into the playoffs tired. So it's going to start to divvy up a lot of everybody's ice time, which is good. And the same thing's going to happen when Chris Letang comes back, too. You're going to see a lot of those guys that have been skating extra minutes, like an Olli Mata and a Matt Niskanen, go back down to those third line minute or those third pairing minutes, and that's going to help those guys out tremendously.
Yeah, and on the plus side, I mean, Paul Martin handled all those minutes well. He got the goal on his only shot. He had 3 hits. He had 2 block shots. So, I mean, he handled it well.
Pretty good night. Paul Martin actually had the most ice time of both teams. Here's a trivia question. Who had the least amount of ice time from both teams?
Eric Tangradi.
Was it?
That is correct.
Eric Tangradi?
Yes!
Yes!
7 minutes.
That's 7 more minutes than he should.
Yeah, exactly. And every single Penguin had double digits ice time, so not even close there. So Eric Tangradi.
Yeah, that's one thing I think we're going to see throughout the rest of this season is everybody over 10 minutes. Yeah, I think they're going to kind of even out a lot of players' numbers there. So,
hey guys, remember that one time Ray Shero insisted that Eric Tangradi be included in the Ryan Whitney trade?
Yep. Didn't work out, unfortunately.
Hey, but you know what? Still a great trade.
Yeah.
And we're still reaping the benefits from it, too. So,
I mean, man, without kids, I don't know.
Is Ryan Whitney in the NHL right now?
That's a good question. I know he was with the Florida Panthers, and
He's with the Florida Panthers.
I don't know if
I don't know if
got sent down or what happened. But I haven't heard his name in a while. So
yeah, I haven't either. And it's so amazing how quick his career tailed off after leaving here. I mean, such a shock because I think so many people were upset about that trade.
Yeah.
Whenever the Pens traded him out to Anaheim, because he was a high caliber guy, and he's done nothing since leaving here.
Yeah. Yeah, he really.
And if you think back, I mean, when he got traded, he had that broken ankle. He missed pretty much all season. He got traded a week after he came back. He didn't even have a chance to play himself out of the lineup. It's like they couldn't wait to get rid of him.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Well, but Tangradi did end up a Penguin, but never worked out. And then they shipped him off to Winnipeg, and that's playing 7 minutes tonight. I think he was on the fourth line, yeah. And Penguins saw a little bit of a different third and fourth line. We saw Magna with Sutter and Stempniak, and then Pyatt, Adams, and Glass, which I like that a lot better because the third line. It's nice to see Jason Magna get rewarded because he was stuck down there with the Adams and the Glasses of the world, and that's not the most ideal place for him to play with his skill set, I don't think.
No, and I like the addition of Pyatt on that fourth line too. I think that's a spot where he fits in the best on his team. Third line was a bit of a stretch because he doesn't score as often as you need him to on that line, but he is a nice big physical presence, and I think that rounds out that fourth line pretty well.
Yeah. And he has had 2 goals in the past 7 games. So
he has.
I feel like I didn't answer your question, Andy.
I forget what the question was.
I do too.
I don't even remember what it was.
We all got lost in Taylor Pyatt's eyes.
Eric Tangradi. I lost it after Eric Tangradi. I blame the big dog.
All I could think of, as you were asking that question, all I was thinking of was the transition from being a superstar OHL guy into the NHL, and it doesn't always pan out the way you think. That trade for Kunitz and Tangradi, it was almost like Tangradi was a surefire top 6 guy at that point because of what he was able to do against juniors, because he was so big. He was just bullying people over, but it never really translated his size and skill to the NHL. So that's all I could think about when you started talking about the fourth line, and just how amazing that fall from grace kind of was, projected top 6 guy. Now he's really scraping the bottom of the barrel for minutes. So
yeah. Well, with the new third and fourth line, that meant Brian Gibbons was promoted to the second line with Jussi Jokinen and James Neal, and paid off. Brian Gibbons with a goal in the third period, the last goal of the game, 16-24. That made it 4-2 Penguins. So a nice insurance marker for Brian Gibbons. That was his 5th of the season, and I don't know exactly how many games Brian Gibbons has been in, but I can tell you it's a lot more than what I expected him to play this year in Pittsburgh. I did not expect him to play. Really, I don't think I expected him to play at all in Pittsburgh, to be honest. But obviously because of all the injuries, he was forced to come up. Yeah, he's played 36 games, so he's played more games than Chris Letang has, and that's just crazy to me. I mean, obviously Chris Letang has had a rough year in the injury department, but Gibbons has been here for a while, and are you, Nick, we'll start with you. How do you feel about Brian Gibbons? I mean, is this a guy that we don't really know what's going to happen as far as health-wise? We don't know if we hope that Malkin will come back for the playoffs. We hope that Marcel Gotch will come back for the playoffs. Joe Vitale may be back in there. So there's definitely some questions about those guys, if they're going to return or not. But is Brian Gibbons a guy that you would throw out there in the playoffs? Because he's done a decent job for his size. That's really the only concern I would have in the playoffs is, the size. Do you think he'd be able to handle the postseason?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big if. I mean, here's a guy that's, a second-year pro, and all of a sudden, he's 36 games in the NHL, and no one expected it, really, but mainly because of injuries. But I'm not so sure if his game translates, and I don't want to seem like I'm super down on him, because I thought he's played pretty good lately. He's drawing penalties, he's scoring timely goals, and he's being effective out there. I hope it translates into a playoff game because I think you're going to need all hands on deck, and I think he's got enough experience up here now that they're going to kind of rely on a guy like him if they have to. So, yeah, I'm not so sure. The biggest thing I am worried about is the size because you go up against a team like Boston, and maybe his speed kind of helps him out there, but it's just such a different game when it's tight checking and like it's almost a trap style every night. So I guess we'll wait and see what that will look like for Brian Gibbons, but he has played great lately.
Yeah, he certainly has, and Gibbons. I don't know. I like I said, the size is definitely a big issue when you come to the playoffs, especially against a team like Boston or Philadelphia, where they're going to be very physical, and you just don't know how he's going to react, obviously, because he's a rookie in the NHL. You don't know if the emotions are going to kind of take over when he gets out onto the big stage in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But Casey, what are your thoughts on Brian Gibbons? I mean, is this a guy that you're willing to throw out there? Like I said, we don't know about all the returns and the injuries and things like that. But is this a guy that you would be comfortable with as a coach throwing out there in the playoffs?
I pretty much agree with everything Nick said. His game frightens me. Yeah, he's got the speed. That would help the third and fourth lines, but man, he's such a small guy.
Yes.
And speaking as a small guy myself, I mean, it's hard to play hockey against big guys.
It's also hard to play hockey when you're drinking moonshine at 7 a.m, Casey.
That's I don't play hockey at 7 a.m.
Who would you?
Mish tweeted into the show hashtag Gibbons for Conn Smythe. So
yeah, and I tweeted him back, life misconduct. I do love how you didn't refute the moonshine at 7 a.m, but you did refute the playing hockey at 7 a.m.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I'm offended by the fact that you think I would play hockey that early in the morning.
Who would you rather send out in the playoff series, Chris Connor or Brian Gibbons?
Brian Gibbons. Brian Gibbons.
But Connor has 20 extra pounds. No, kidding. They're both 5'8".
Brian Gibbons by far.
Chris Connor's been he's had some bad luck this year.
What?
He's
Okay,
getting ready to come back, and then he got hurt again.
I've completely lost track. Is he injured or is he back in Wilkes-Barre? He's injured, right?
No, he's injured. Yeah, he's still on the IR.
Okay.
He was about to come back, and then I forget what happened. He got injured again. He was out for 3 to 6 more weeks or something like that. But I mean, even if he is, healthy, I'm just going to send him back.
On January 2nd, he had hand surgery.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's out indefinitely.
Yeah.
Gibbons last year in the playoffs for Wilkes-Barre, actually, 2 years ago? No, last year. 15 games played, 3 goals, 5 assists, 22 penalty minutes. That's not bad numbers.
No. Definitely
and I stand
not.
corrected, this is his 3rd year as a pro.
So the Penguins, as I said, 4-2 winners tonight over the Winnipeg Jets and improves the record to 49-23-5, 103 points. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10, and they are now 22-14-3 on the road. As now they will head to Minnesota, I believe, right, on Saturday to face the Minnesota Wild. They've been pretty hot lately. That's a decent team over there. They'll play old friend Matt Cook. That's another 8 o'clock game. Also, a lot of 8 o'clock games actually coming up. Penguins and Wild, Penguins and Avalanche, and then Red Wings and Penguins on Wednesday. That could be a first round preview. We'll have to see. But since we didn't get to do this on Monday, we're going to do the playoff matchup. I guess we're going to call it playoff matchup Thursday today, since it is Thursday. It doesn't have the same ring to it, but I think we'll go ahead and do that. So here in the Eastern Conference, I guess we might as well just start there. The Penguins, tops of the Metropolitan Division, they would play the top wild card team, which is the Detroit Red Wings. Nick, we'll start with you. Who do you have and how many games?
The way the Pens have been playing lately, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence. Detroit has played pretty good throughout the year. They're playing over their head, I think, with all the injuries they've got, but they're a very seasoned team. I would have typically said 5, but I'm going to say 7, and the Pens come out on top. Just because I think they're going to have a little tougher time than I think they're expecting to. But in the end, it's going to be okay.
What about you, Casey? What do you got?
All right. Before I give you my prediction, I want to say that I love the fact that this could be a matchup. You know, the Penguins and the Red Wings had that rare accomplishment of having a East-West rivalry for the 2 years they met in the Stanley Cup Finals. So I'm glad the Red Wings are in the East and they can kind of maybe renew that rivalry. That being said, I'm going to go Penguins in 7. I think even if Datsuk and if Datsuk and Zetterberg are back, yeah, I'm going to go Penguins in 7.
The reason you love this series is the reason I hate this series, actually. Well, maybe not the exact reason, because what I would rather see, and here I go on my soapbox, but I would rather see the Pens versus the Blue Jackets, mainly for the benefit of the Columbus Blue Jackets, just because they could use that proximity rival, and there's no way they're getting through Boston. I think Boston and Detroit, that's a better original 6 matchup to start off, and then the Pens could kind of piggyback the popularity of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and hopefully that kind of gets them, that rivalry kind of kick-started a bit. And it would be awesome to see a playoff series with so many Pens fans in the opposite arena, like the opponent's arena. That's what I would rather see. But I'm okay also, I guess, with the Detroit series. But I just think for the benefit of the other team, I would like to see Columbus kind of have something to cheer about. And, you know.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. If the Penguins and the Blue Jackets can get a playoff series under their belt, then their rivalry won't feel so forced.
I don't think it feels forced. I think it feels very natural. I think they've got like every right to feel upset and kind of inferior in a way, because they've been invaded year after year after year now. And I think that has kind of stirred up some emotional aspect on their side of things, and it's still a lot of fun for Pens fans. Like they're not close in like talent, and that's why I think it doesn't feel like a rivalry for the Pens fans. But for the Columbus fans, yeah, they're a bit bitter, and you can't blame them. So that part of a rivalry is there, and I think the playoff series would kind of just amplify the whole thing. So, yeah, that's my wish.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I'd love to see those two have a playoff series because, as you said, I think Columbus has potential to be a really good hockey market down there, but they need something to jumpstart them a little bit. They almost made the playoffs last year, but if they could at least get into a playoff series and at least compete in the series, it'll be tough against the Penguins if they do match up against them, or Boston for that matter. But just to get a playoff series there would be nice. But again, the Penguins and Blue Jackets, that would be really good to see. We'll see if it happens. Toronto, Washington, New Jersey, Carolina, Ottawa. These are all teams that are also in the hunt for these wild card spots, and I wouldn't mind seeing New Jersey slipping into that 2 spot and taking on Boston just to see maybe they can take out Boston, because I think the Penguins are really, really hoping that Boston does not make it, but does not make it past the first round. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Boston's obviously a really good team, but you never know with New Jersey. I just don't want New Jersey playing the Pens, that's all. That's not a team I want to face. But moving on, as I said, Boston and Columbus, 2 teams that we just talked about. That would be the matchup if the playoffs started today, and I got to tell you, I don't give Columbus much of a chance in this one. I didn't give you my pick for Pittsburgh and Detroit. I would probably say Penguins in 6 or 7, just because that's just a typical Detroit and Pittsburgh series. It'll be hard fought, but Boston and Columbus, I got to say Boston. I'll say 5 games. I'll give Columbus the benefit of the doubt. They'll get 1 game, but
nope.
I don't. Maybe not.
They're
Who
not
knows?
getting one game in that series. Not one. I don't think they have the legs to hang with a team like Boston, and they're
I'm
just
too
going to
generous.
pummel them. Yeah, you're being quite generous. Season series is 3-0 in favor of Boston, and I mean, while it's regular season kind of stuff, Boston's just too battle tested, too good, and too big for a team like Columbus.
What about
I'm
you,
gonna
Chris?
go Boston in 5.
Yes.
I never ever pick a sweep.
Yeah, that's
anything could happen. You know, I mean, against Boston, a team can scrap its entire game plan and then play on the perimeter and hit nothing but post the whole series.
Man, no.
So we got Boston.
This is about as
Pittsburgh.
sure thing as any in the entire. Yeah.
Yeah, so Montreal and Tampa Bay is the next matchup in the East, and I think most of these are pretty similar to what we had last week. But Montreal and Tampa Bay, another, that's a pretty good series there. Casey, we'll start with you. Who comes out on top in this one?
I'm sorry. Which series were we talking about?
Montreal and Tampa Bay.
No more moonshine.
Moonshine and Tampa Bay.
I'm gonna go Montreal in this one. Better goaltending. Carey Price is just on fire all year, so I'm gonna go Montreal probably in 6.
I'm going to end up saying Tampa Bay, but it really depends on how kind of tired Ben Bishop is. Now, he's played great for them all year. Stamkos is now coming back into form. But as long as Ben Bishop could kind of keep his legs under him and play a good series, I could see Tampa Bay taking this in 5 or 6.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tampa Bay as well. I'll say in 6 games. I think it would be a good series, but I like what Ben Bishop is doing there. Steven Stamkos, obviously. Ryan Callahan's been a great fit there. They talk about they may even keep him. We'll see what happens there. But for now, they have him this year, and he's been a good fit there. So I like Tampa Bay in that one in 6. We talked about this one last week. Going to be a bloodbath. New York Rangers and Philadelphia Flyers. Looks pretty likely that these two teams are going to meet. That is going to be a hell of a series. And once again, just like last week, I have no idea who I want to pick. I think I took Philadelphia last time in 7. I'll just stick by that. I really haven't been paying too much attention to what each or both of those teams have been doing recently, but I haven't been able to watch any of their games. But from what I saw recently, it wasn't that long ago. But love the way the Flyers are playing. I know New York has the better goaltender, but that's just a coin flip for me. So I'll go Flyers in 7 on that one. Casey, who do you got in that one? That's a tough one to pick.
I'm going Rangers in 7, and by Rangers in 7, I pretty much mean Lundqvist over Steve Mason in 7.
Yeah, to me, this really comes down to whoever owns that home ice advantage, and that's basically all that they're playing for at this point. They're all but in the playoffs here, and for them, whoever wins Game 7 is probably going to win the whole. They are going to win the whole series, but if it's going to be the home team, I think, in that whoever has home ice in this series is going to end up winning it in 7 games.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, well, that's the East. So we have Boston, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, and New York moving on as the majority rule. Since we do have 3 people, that's nice. We can at least eliminate teams this way. We'll move on to the West. We have the St. Louis Blues. They're the top seed in the West against the Dallas Stars. Dallas making a nice little run here. They have a nice mix of veterans and young players, but I don't give them much of a chance against the St. Louis Blues. Do you, Nick?
Season series tied up at 2. Actually, Dallas has played St. Louis a little bit pretty well, actually, this year. But I don't think it's going to be enough to kind of win the series. I could see them maybe stealing a game. Maybe 2. I doubt it. So I'm going to say St. Louis in 5, but I could see it going 6. But Dallas, I don't think they've got a big chance in this.
Yeah, I don't think either. I would say I'll say Blues in 5. Don't see them taking that one. The Stars. I mean by that, the Blues they're just incredible defensively. They're just unreal, and I don't see the Stars getting past the Blues. What about you, Casey?
No, it's going to be St. Louis in 5. St. Louis is so tough to play against, such a good defensive team, and on top of all that, they also score a ton of goals. So, yeah, sorry, Dallas.
So Dallas would go home. St. Louis would move on. Next one, Colorado and Chicago. A little bit of an interesting one. The Blackhawks you think would be the superior team. They are. They have more points, obviously. Or actually, no, Colorado has more points now. 102 to 101. A little bit surprising there. Patrick Waugh doing some great things down there in Colorado. But they have, look at the season series. Colorado has a 4-1 lead on the defending champs. Casey, will the Blackhawks be able to take out Colorado and try to defend the cup?
This is such a hard pick to make because Chicago is kind of in the same boat as the Penguins are right now. They have a really tough March. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. It's just depends on if they're going to take these bad habits that they've developed into the playoffs or not. I gotta make a choice here. I'm going to go Chicago in 7. I'm picking Chicago's experience over Colorado's youth with that pick.
Patrick Waugh will knock out all the Stars on the Blackhawks.
They're already out.
Make sure the glass in between the benches is nice and secure.
He doesn't have to do much to do that right now either. So, I mean, with Taves and Kane both out right now, Colorado still has 2 games in hand, actually. So they're 1 point up, but they've got 2 games in hand. So they could end up having the home ice advantage here, which is really shocking to me because just Chicago is such a solid team. I see upset all over this one. I do, and I love the Blackhawks, but eventually a young team like Colorado, they're going to come in there and kind of disturb you a bit, and I could see Colorado taking this in 5 or 6, actually. It's my gutsy, ballsy pick.
Yeah, that's the bold pick of the day. But I like what Colorado's doing, but I have a hard time picking them over Chicago just because of all the experience the Blackhawks have. Mm-hmm. I got to give the Avalanche credit, though. I mean, what a turnaround for that team. A lot of good things in store for the future for that team. So, but I think I'll take the Blackhawks, and I'll say 7. I do think Colorado is definitely going to make it a series, but I'll take Chicago in that one. Moving on, the Minnesota Wild and the Anaheim Ducks. Minnesota Wild, 90 points on the season. Anaheim, 108 points on the season. First 50-win season for Anaheim this year. Corey Perry and Getzlaf doing some amazing things down there with Bruce Boudreau at the helm. And Minnesota, the Penguins' next opponent, they have 90 points on the season, 39, 26, and 12 record. Minnesota's been, they have some talent, don't have a lot of experience, though. So I do see Anaheim taking this one. Anaheim has a 2-1 lead in this series and during the season. Nick, who do you have in this one?
I'm not sold on Boudreau. I do love Anaheim, though. I love their depth. I love their offensive scoring. I think their defense is good. But I could see Minnesota actually taking this one. I'm going to be a little gutsy maybe out here in the West, but I could see Minnesota taking this in 6 or 7. It'll be a hard series for them to do so, but I think they've got the defensive talent to be able to smother a team like Anaheim, and it's really hard to do, but we've seen it happen to the Pens. Like where defense kind of wins out and those tight checking games, it's hard to get any room. I could see that happening to Anaheim mainly because it's like Bruce Boudreau's team, and I'm not so sure he's capable of switching from playing a high-octane kind of game to a very defensive style, very defensive-minded game. So that's kind of my justification for it there. I could see Minnesota kind of upsetting here in 6 or 7.
What about you, Casey?
You know what? I agree with everything Nick said, except I think that Boudreaux can get them past the first round at least. They might flame out in the second round, but I think they're good enough to beat the Minnesota Wild. I mean, they have a ton of points. They've scored a lot of goals this year. They have Ryan Getzlaf, who, in my opinion, is the only player who comes close to challenging Sidney Crosby for the Hart Trophy this year. So, I mean, that's got to be worth something. I'm going to go with Anaheim over Minnesota. I'm going to go 6 games.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to do. Anaheim in 6 games. I do agree with the questioning of Boudreaux, but I definitely think that the Ducks can at least get past the Wild and move on to the first round. So, we'll see what happens. The next one, the last one in the Western Conference, and we always save the best for last. We saw in the East, Rangers and Flyers. That was a tough one to pick. Here's another tough one to pick, and these two teams are actually playing right now as we speak. The Los Angeles Kings and San Jose Sharks. LA up 1-0 at the moment. Looks like it's the end of the first period there. So the Kings, off a Jordan Nolan goal, are leading 1-0 at the end of the first. And the season series, the Kings lead 3-1. Kings 96 points on the season, while the San Jose Sharks 105 points. But Casey, man, I know the Sharks have more points than the Kings, but the Kings lead in the season series, and you can't underestimate those Los Angeles Kings, can you?
No, you can't. And because of that, I'm going to stay in Misha's good graces, and I'm going to pick Los Angeles over San Jose in 6. A lot like the Philly-New York series, this is going to come down the goaltending for me. And, I mean, Jonathan Quick wins when it counts. So that's my pick.
Nick, do you agree?
Man, it's really hard to pick against LA just because they are so good, and they've been there and they've done that, and then you got a guy like Jonathan Quick. Yeah, this is going to be a tough series, but I do see LA coming out on top in 6.
Yeah, I was leaning towards San Jose for a while, but man, I mean, it's tough.
Sorry, majority rules.
Yeah, I know. It does. My opinion doesn't matter, folks, because it doesn't. No matter if I pick the Sharks, they're not moving on in our, at least our segment here. But it's a tough one. It's another coin flip one. But the Kings. The more and more I think about it, it's hard for me to say that the Kings aren't going to win this now, because of all the experience that they have. And I said the Blackhawks would beat the Avalanche because of their experience, and the Kings have had that experience as well. So I'll say Kings. I'll say Kings in 7. I think it's going to be a really, really good series, just like Flyers and Rangers. And all these matchups have the potential, I guess, to be really good. But I think the last 2s that we save for each conference are the best ones. So we will have to see as Penguins will move on to Minnesota on Saturday, play the Wild, and then they'll face the Avalanche and then return home to play Detroit. And, well, the regular season is coming to an end very quickly. Only 12 days until the playoffs begin. Once we get here to the April 4th, obviously. April 16th. It'll be getting here quickly. The Pens will finish the season on the 13th and start the playoffs on the 16th. So, going to be fun to watch. We'll see what happens here. Who the Penguins will play, that'll probably be determined probably towards the end, maybe the last day of the regular season, just because of how many teams are so close in those wild card spots. But that'll about do it here for us tonight at the Pens Nation Radio Show. The Penguins win again 4-2 over the Winnipeg Jets. Myself, Andy Hughes, I'd like to thank all of you. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Casey. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Pens Nation Radio Show.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here.
What is happening right now?
Not sure.